Oh my God, walking up to our location. It is below freezing, fog out, Donner Lake. The dock is covered with ice. Is this even worth shooting? And how did we get ourselves into the situation here? Let's back up a little bit. My name is Lucky. I've been a working commercial photographer for over 10 years. And I've worked with brands from MGM, Patagonia to LinkedIn. I know how to run a photo shoot. So how did I get myself in a situation where there are 4 individuals showing up to Donner Lake in the morning and it's covered in fog? Well, I'll tell you how that happened. It wasn't by accident. We planned on doing this. This was on purpose. I hope that at the end of this video, you will also be able to make photographs and make content like this one, whether you're using professional gear or you're using an iPhone like in this photo right here. What I intend on doing here is being specific. Me, as a professional photographer, I'm a craftsman. When I envision something, I can create that vision. What I intend to do happens. As an artist, as a professional and personal branding guide, we talk about an idea and take that idea on and explore it together to create a vision. And we had to iterate quite a bit. And that's a lot of what personal branding is. It's a bit of self-discovery and storytelling. Important thing about personal branding is defining what it is. A lot of times what we discover is that when we're talking about personal branding, we're thinking about your traditional corporate branding, your big company branding. Think LinkedIn, think Nike. Those are tribes that people want to associate with, but those can be driven by a personal brand, but those are not the personal brand. You have Tesla, which has its own brand. People that want to have electric cars, that want to be part of the tribe that isn't using fossil fuels, they may flock toward Tesla. However, the personal brand of Elon Musk may have some people deciding that maybe they don't want to actually play with Tesla. Or maybe some people are specifically fans of Elon Musk's personal brand, and that's the specific reason that they have decided to move over from the F-150 to the Cybertruck. So personal brand is not the same thing as like a corporate brand. The other thing that sometimes for creatives like myself that can be confusing is, what is the difference between your personal brand and your professional reputation? I know that those two things seem sometimes similar and they can be associated, but understanding when your activities are supposed to be moving your personal brand and when your activities are moving the bottom line for your professional brand, and not getting confused. I see a lot of folk out there that are busy building a personal brand when the thing they need to be working on is their professional reputation, dialing that in, maybe having a little more awareness about what their professional reputation is. However, what they need is not talking about what their personal situation is, because in the world they work in, who they are is not going to be the reason people choose to work with them. People are going to choose to work with them with the effect they have, beginning and end. So don't really get your professional brand confused with your personal brand. Now, your personal brand, you probably have heard this from probably the biggest names out there that, kind of defining what a personal brand is. And really, I think some of these people are the definers of what this is. So I'm not saying that these people are wrong. I'm saying these are the different places you can find out about what a personal brand really is. One thing that you might hear from someone like a Chris Do from the future is that your personal brand is something that what people say about you when you're not in the room. Or, you might have heard Alec Hormozy, he might say something like, it's the value that, your name brings to a project. VaynerMedia, and he talks about how it moves the bottom line. In the end, all a personal brand is when you, the person, your story is interesting enough to bring people and add value to whatever you do, whether what you do is offering a product or what you do is offering an event. When you do that, that brings value, or it changes the conversation. It changes the value of what you are, the essential thing that you're providing, whether it's a service, whether it's an event, whether it's a physical product. When your name comes up, it changes that. If your name comes up and that same activity, a thing you want to be known for, also comes up, and nothing happens, then you don't have a personal brand on that. You have a personal brand somewhere else, but it's not around that. And sometimes when you have a professional reputation in an area and your personal brand don't match up, you find yourself struggling professionally because that reputation doesn't match up with the personal brand that you want. Or maybe your personal brand is counter to your professional reputation. Sometimes that happens and people are like, I need to change my personal brand. It's like, well, you created a personal brand that is not constructive to your professional reputation. So be mindful when you decide you're going to get into that space, especially for the real estate professionals out there. Your face is there. If you're a medical professional, your face is the principal thing that people are looking at. So when you are building your professional brand and your personal reputation, or your personal brand and your professional reputation, make sure that you're mindful of how those two things are going to play together. In your professional brand, you typically, your personal brand, what you are going to want to concentrate on is your why. What are you trying to do and who are you serving? Or maybe we should start with, who are you serving? Whose life do you want to transform? And what transformation are those people going to have after they interact with you? That is the only real question you want to have, is who are you serving and how is their life going to be different after they're done with you? If you can figure that out, the rest of the things that you do here, that's what I call the foundation or your North Star. Once you understand who you're serving and how you transform their lives, typically from sharing a transformation that you've had in your life or transformation that you have enacted for someone else, through that transformation, if you understand that each time when you're out creating content, you understand who that person is, where they're at, and why they would want to interact with you in order to be transformed in their life, or why they would see you and be like, hey, you know what, this person sees me, they understand where my hurt is, and they can actually change it for me. Hopping on this side of the camera, I find myself starting over, and I figure you can come along on the journey with me on how to actually build your personal brand, because even though I have years of shooting experience on the other side of the camera, I understand that when you have 3 different creative things you're doing, you're a painter, or maybe you're a yoga instructor, or maybe you have a real estate business and you're an interior designer. You have several different things and you want to tell a consistent story. And you also have your hands in a lot of pies. The time to be able to tell a consistent story is difficult to find because you're busy creating. You are a creative. Hopefully what you gain from this will give you a bit of peace of mind. All right. The point of this video here is going to be a foundational piece. This is not a masterclass. This is a foundation. It's kind of a guiding star, a map for how you too can create a personal brand that moves you bottom line, a personal brand that's effective, to be able to create something that doesn't take up all your time. I think this is a video for the creative entrepreneur, the multi-passionate, the polymath, all right? You already get paid to do 2 or 3 things. One of them is probably creative. And you've seen people go on TV, go on YouTube, pretend to be, like experts. And they've been taking your lunch and you like to eat your own lunch now, So this is what this is going to help you out with. This is who you're going to send that out to. That friend that you believe in that's super talented, but just has not been able to get a huge break. They got plenty of breaks, but not a big one. This is going to help them out so that they can grow their bottom line in an effective way, in a way that's not stressful, all right? Over this video, we're going to go over a few things. Personal branding, what it is, how it affects your business, what it isn't. That's easy stuff. A little bit of the composition stuff, how to put it together, some tips on lighting, some tips on some posing. And then we're going to go over where all this stuff goes. After you've spent all your time putting together countless amounts of content, if it doesn't have a home, it doesn't have anywhere to go, it's utterly useless. Who, understanding where they are, what age group they're in, what problem are you solving for this particular demographic, If they have a situation and a problem and you solve that, that makes it easy for you to Google, hey, this kind of person has this problem, what are they looking for? It makes it easier for you to be empathetic, to figure out how it is that you can get into their space, into their head, to be able to solve their problems. So you see why starting with your why is so important. Oh, I hope I don't die on this one here. This is a little slippery here. All right. Now that you understand who you're going to be serving, whose life you're transforming. Oh boy, this is gonna be a slippery walk down. All right, there we go. Woo-hoo. This is just gonna be real paying attention here, okay? So going back here. So now that you understand whose life you're transforming and where they are, you can start dialing in. Well, where would they find you? Where would you interact with them? Because that's where you're going to be creating your content to live. And that's really important for you to understand that. The reason you have to start with your why is because everything you're going to do moving forward is going to be about supporting that who and why. So if you're not doing things that are moving things forward on your who and why, and you're probably not doing things that are going to be making a difference in your personal brand. Understanding also who you're talking to will help you with your voice that you have when speaking to them. Everything is based on your who and why. Understanding who's going to be on your side, who are your potential allies, who are associated businesses, who are associated people, who you can collaborate with, who is your competition. Understanding your competition really well is super useful, and if you don't know your competition, it's really hard to beat them. It's also hard to research what other people are looking at before they see you. So you want to know those things. Now that you've got your who and why dialed in, you've got your personal brand, you know who you're going to be serving and how you're going to transform their lives. Typically start with a transformation that you have made yourself, for yourself, or to a transformation that you have elicited for somebody else, and you can show them, or better yet, they can tell other people about that transformation. So that's really what this is about. With that transformation, we can look at, well, where will this content live? In real life, if you're doing a talk, if you're going to a networking event, is this going to be on your business card? Is this going to be on a flyer? Is this going to be behind you on a TV when you're speaking? Is this going to be something that you bring with you to a podcast? You know, when you're sending out a media kit, are you going to be having a craft fair? So you want to be able to have a little bit of information about you. Are you going to be pushing yourself to be on the news, or are you going to be working with some of the people in your group to be able to do these things? Understanding where the stuff lives is going to be helpful. If your customers are on LinkedIn, make sure your content's for LinkedIn. If it's going to be on Twitter, make sure stuff's going to work for Twitter, okay? And that's going to change the orientation that you shoot in, understanding where they're at, your portrait mode or your landscape mode. The main tip here to make sure this works is work with somebody else, work with the community, have a clique, get a gang, have a creative gang, have a little personal branding triad. Find 2 other people that are down to play with you, down to work with you, down to be in business, not necessarily with you, but in collaboration with you. Do this with them. Agree that, hey, you're all going to build your personal brands together, helping each other build your personal brands, and watch as you're most successful by doing that. If you spend the next month, next 2 weeks, dialing down the people that you want to work with, finding them, and coming to this agreement, you will be further along than if you spend every day the next 30 days working at your business, because telling that story by yourself is a lot harder. You have heralds when you do that. You have other people to help tell your story. So don't take that lightly. Don't dismiss the value of having some support. This is a really dodgy area to be slipping in. I mean, it looks ugly, and it's a lot harder to do than than it really should be. All right. So having allies is a really key thing, and it'll come into the other parts of making this creation, because it can remove a lot of the more challenging ways that content is made. Especially if you need a few people, someone that's a graphic artist, someone that's a photographer, someone that knows video, someone that's a stylist, someone that knows PR, someone that maybe knows some legal stuff. Whatever your collection of people are, having people that do it together, you'll get further. That. And also having a plan to understand that if any of you are going to drip some content to other places, you're making sure that your hero shot, the best shot, the photograph or the video that most tells a story or most gives the perspective is going to match the actual channel, the actual location, the place you're going to put it. And I say location because it's not always going to be online. The main place that you interact with people may be at a craft fair. You might be someone that interacts with people, principal, while you're speaking. You might put on classes, and you are putting on a yoga retreat, and you have pamphlets, or you have a video playing in the background, or you have something at the end. This also may be something completely digital, where everyone interacts with you principally on social media, so all your information is being pushed out through Instagram Or you might be someone that inspires people professionally, and most of your content is happening on LinkedIn. And so, with those things, you have to keep in mind the context that you have to provide on those platforms. The platform of Instagram is going to have different contextual situations and a different interaction expectation than you will have on LinkedIn, where people are expecting to learn something of value. They're expecting to read something, so typically they're not just expecting to see a photograph and move on. Whereas on Instagram, if people read your captions, that you're doing great. So keep that in mind. And understanding where your content will live, whether it's in real life, online, if it's going to be consumed on a phone. Most things are consumed on a phone. So if you're putting out a website that is beautiful on a desktop, but the people that you speak to are principally on their phones, and they're going to consume your content on their phone, your beautifully and perfectly designed website that looks amazing on your desktop is not going to sing, is not going to make it easy, and is going to put a lot of restrictions, a lot of friction between your optimum client and what you're trying to do. So be mindful of that. Now that you know where your content is going to live, now you're gonna think about the composition. We're not bringing the camera out yet. We're not pulling that out. We're not snapping. Now that you know where it's gonna go, it's gonna be something that's gonna be principally gonna be portrait mode, or most of the things is gonna be snapped in a landscape mode. I shoot things a lot more on landscape now because I'm doing things on YouTube. I was principally used to doing things on Instagram and Pinterest, so I'm very used to doing things in a portrait mode, and that's been challenging for me to switch over from portrait to landscape. But I have learned the hard way that if I don't do that, that stuff is useless afterwards. So, make sure you understand that. Knowing where your things are going to go will help with composition, because as you build your composition, you know if you're going to have copy meaning word, you know how big your face needs to be. If people are willing to zoom in and look at a photo, they're going to have the capacity to do that, right? You know that if your words are going to be driven principally by the captions below, or they're going to be driven principally by something you have on the page. Will you have something there to support everything else? Are you making something that's going to end up having wording on it? You need to have negative space. You need to have space aside from you, so you'll be able to put those words in a non-distracted format, while also not taking away from the main story in the photograph or the video. So that's what I mean by composition. The other things that you think about in composition is, who is your subject? Typically, your subject may not be you. If you're in a photograph and you're doing personal branding, and you are taking your own photos, someone is taking it for you, the thing that may actually be the hero is the activity you're doing. So when people understand what you do or what services you offer. So you, in that case, are the supporting actor. The clay, the piece of pottery in the center, that's the hero. You wrapped around it is just letting people know, hey, this is what I do. And this is who I am. So now you know it's me, but really you see the mud on me, you see the clay pot that I'm putting together, you're throwing mud, but it's not you that's the hero. So really, when you do that, you weight things differently, you color things differently, you weight heavier the piece of pottery instead of yourself, right? You may still be big, but the piece of pottery is going to be up front, it's going to take up the whole thing here, and you're just going to be around it, you're going to be curled around it, it's going to be mostly pot, you hands mud. That really tells that story. Now let's say what you really want to tell is a story that, we have a huge, pottery studio where people of different skill levels have access to the tools they need to be able to use to learn pottery. And you're still in this photograph, and you're still throwing mud because you want people to know that you are an actual, potter yourself. You also know how to do pottery. What do you do in that case? Well, you pull back a bit. Your scaling changes, right? You might make yourself and the piece of pottery that you're doing an equivalent size, but you pull back and you show more of the studio. You show maybe some of the tools in the back that people need to be able to make their pots. Maybe you have an oven that you fire everything in. You want to show that that's something that's available to people. That's something that people don't typically have if they do this stuff at home. You might change the colors if your studio is a warm colored place and you really want to show off all the things it has, but you want to make sure that you are still the subject. You might be in a cooler color. Everything else is warm. You might be wearing a little bit of pops of blue, maybe a little bit of pop of purple. So that way you're separated from it, you're weighted differently from it because of your color. Or you might find yourself in focus while the studio is out of focus. Or maybe the whole idea is you show off a beautiful set of tools that you might need for your activity and out of focus, but still being able to tell who you are is you doing your activity. People can tell it's you because from other photos, but you are not the actual subject. So that's kind of what I mean by understanding your composition, understanding who the subject is, which might be yourself, it might be your background, it might be your activity, who the supporting characters are, which again, same set of people here, and how you compose that, whether you have them centered, you're off, you're off the scale and you're off on one side. So, you really are, you're kind of doing some funny things. You're like saying, hey, oh no, what did I do there? Boom, knocking things over. There we go. You're looking over and saying, hey, there's something going on here. But if I'm here, maybe you're like, hey, this is the dead center. This guy is talking to the mic, that changes how this whole thing comes together. If I'm pulled back and I'm back here, it's like, hey, what is going on? There's a lot of space here. You can put a lot of texture, but there's going to be some things going on. If I'm looking away from there, there's a lot of weird feelings. So that's what I mean by composition, is that where you are, your scaling in a photo or in a video really changes things, right? What colors you are. I make sure to keep myself relatively warm and cool while my background is mostly warm so that way you can still see me. I still have my vibe, but I'm still separated from my background. That's what I mean by that composition. The other components of your composition you keep in mind is, what are you wearing? Your attire needs to speak to your brand, needs to speak to your story. The colors of it need to also be in support of the story or the characters. If your background, and your background is going to be warm, maybe you want to wear a cooler color. If your background is going to be complicated and you're going to have a lot of lines, maybe you avoid having a lot of textures and lines in that. That's a component of the composition. If you're someone that speaks to a great deal about beauty products, part of your composition may be making sure that you yourself are well beautified and you are well put together. If you are a medical professional and you don't want to spend most of your time proving who you are, that social proof can be your uniform. You can put on those scrubs and now we understand who you are. So that's a component of your composition, your jewelry, the furniture you have. The other components of your composition is your location. Like where we are here. This location is a big part of telling that story. And that's a major part of that. As an environmental portrait photographer, which means I'm a portrait photographer that photographs people in their environment to support the story of who they are. I hope that makes sense. You want to keep in mind what your environment is, where your light source is coming from, what your ground is, what color your ground is, how shiny your ground is. Is it reflective or not reflective? All of those things will change the nature of your light on your subject. It will change the nature of your composition, whether you have negative space that you can use because of a singular uniform thing like trees or a blue sky or a lake or fog. That's probably an accident that we ended up here, right? Or you might want to be able to use scale. So whether you're in the mountains or you have a view of the mountains can change how that comes together, right? When you're rock climbing, whether you're observing the rock climber from below or you're up there and you're looking from above them and you're looking down to them so people can tell what that height is. Those are the different ways you change your composition. I know a lot of times when people talk about composition, they talk about the rule of thirds. You got something here, you got your other stuff here, and you put someone in between, and as long as you're in those lines, those work. I understand those are some easy ways to try to remember some stuff, but keeping things to those hard, steady rules will have your mind racing instead of composing. What you want to do is concentrate on what are you trying to talk about. If you see your subject, make sure you pull that subject up front. If your main thing is the activity, make sure that is profiled in a way that is big and easy to see. Then make sure you do that by color or by scale or by where in the photograph they are, right? Or in the video they are, on how much do you concentrate on that. Okay, now we know what we're shooting, who we're talking to, and now we also know how to put ourselves in the scene to tell our story. Now we get out our stuff. We get out our camera because knowing all those things before you pull out your equipment helps you be able to do what you need to do, and also informs you the tools you need. If you're doing anything with video, the main set of tools that you're going to need are going to be around audio. You need to have high quality audio. Video is audio. As a photographer, I figured I would have a huge advantage in YouTube because I understand lighting, I understand composition. This is great. I'm going to win all day long. But I quickly realized that if my audio sucks, no one wants to watch any of this. And so I have worked hard to get a better audio situation, which also means that I took myself away from being concerned as much about lighting and composition. This is also part of the reason why I'm creating this. So I see if it's this hard for me, it's probably hard for you. Let's make life easy for you so we don't gotta worry about stuff. As far as gear, the best things you can do, if you have the newest iPhone, the iPhone 16 Pro or 16, any of the 16 Pros, the mics on those are phenomenal. For most people, 98% of professionals, if you are an artist, I know you may already have a camera, and a good one. Use your iPhone. This is being shot on the iPhone. Why? Ease of use. The audio on there is fantastic. You can immediately get back to editing it and putting it out. I'm going to edit this probably on my iPad or on my phone. You want to keep the friction low. It's got to be slippery. Creation has got to be easy because the information you're sharing is heavy. Your expertise is heavy. Your process requires a lot of concentration to be showing that. So make the documentation really easy. Other audio things. I have a mic for podcasting. Pick one of those up and attach this to my iPhone, attach this to a professional camera. That's a really easy thing to do. Get yourself a lavalier mic. These are all things. This mic is a little bit pricey, but a lavalier mic, you can get a cheap wireless one. I got one for $30. You can do that easily. They work great. It's better than having no good audio. So make sure that your audio is good if you're doing video. Okay. Now we talked about, you're making sure your location is good because that takes a whole lot. The next thing. The next part you want to consider is, can your tool be used in the place you want to use it? If you're going to be doing a video in a national park and you want to fly your drone, you might not be able to do that. Keep that in mind. If you want to bring your fancy gimbal camera out in a public setting and it's privately owned, the people that own that property may say, hey, not in my restaurant, not in my bar, not in my casino, not in my whatever. So keep in mind how your equipment can be utilized. Also, make sure your equipment can do the thing that you need to do. Mobile devices have a lot of capabilities. While professional devices can do them better, professional devices, I consider those to be like a race car. A race car probably doesn't have air conditioning or a good sound system, comfortable seats, or nice suspension. It's not good on gas, bad maintenance. I mean, you can go through and name why, like, a Formula One car is a terrible car, but yeah, that is the best car you can get for racing because it has the most amount of control. And it requires professionals to control those things. I'm going to say that again. Professional equipment requires professionals to operate them. So if you want to play with professional equipment, expect to put in a professional amount of time to be able to control it. You will get better results, but you will also have to put professional amounts of effort into being able to get those results. Keep that in mind when choosing your equipment. If you want to use nicer and better lights, keep in mind you're going to need to have better stands. Bigger stand. You need to know how to break down a light, adapter. You're going to need to be able to have the space for one of those. Know how to deal with the audio because those things, a lot of them make a lot of noise. So you don't want the fans kicking on while you're doing your audio. Keep that in mind, right? So just keep in mind if you want to use professional equipment, you're going to need to do that. Another reason to keep in mind for mobile devices, they have multiple cameras on them. Most cameras that come with it, that you get, professional cameras or professional amateur cameras, whatever it is, the lens quality on them doesn't drop down to an aperture, which is the f-stop, which is the thing that makes it fuzzy. It gives you that nice quality that your phone can do. So you'll end up spending more money and then discovering that the equipment that you have can't produce the results that you want. And if it can, it's a pricey piece of glass, okay? You get yourself an L piece of glass, it's gonna set you back $1,800 for one piece of lens. That's one piece of equipment, not just your phone, not the back, just one glass. This before considering audio or anything else like that. So keep that in mind, okay? Your focal length changes the compression of your background. So in a phone like this that has telephoto, I can use the actual compression to give it a bokeh feel without having actual bokeh. You can do that with a 50 millimeter. They'll give you a certain amount. Where you go wider, there's less compression. The things in the background are not as big. Where if you have a longer lens, 100 millimeter, 200 millimeter, the things in the background are closer. That's what they're doing that compression. So in your composition, if you want your background to be closer, but you don't need to be at your background, let's say you want to be an influencer and you want to talk about the beautiful background mountains behind you, but you really want those mountains like right next to you, you're going to have a lens that is further from you. Yeah, that's the other part. So you also are going to need the space away from you to be able to put a camera far away, so that way it focuses on you, and then with you the background also shows up well, right? Whereas maybe if you have a wide angle, you have to have that thing right up close. That also means that your face is going to be big, everything is going to be bigger, it's going to be closer. So keeping that in mind, if you're concerned about looking like a clown, maybe don't use a wide angle like those vlogging ones, right? And also your background is going to be smaller, so you're not going to be able to see it. So if that's an important part, keep that in mind, all right? That your equipment changes that context, right? Like a long lens is going to compress it. You're also going to need more space. It's going to show more stuff. Also, if you're doing video, a long lens, because of that, the physics of it, is going to require quite a bit more stabilization. You're going to want to put that on a tripod. You're not walking around with that. Wide angle is a lot more compromising to that. Those are easy things to keep in mind. So equipment-wise, try to use your phone. Get yourself a decent mic. Now, lighting is something that's typically difficult to do. You want to replicate the sun. That's really what you're trying to do. Wherever the sun might be, try to replicate that. Start there. Try to make it look like the sun. Maybe the sun bouncing off some buildings. Maybe it's a red building. So light, red reflector, one light. I got like 4 lights going on in here, maybe 6, I don't know. Don't do that, okay? Until you understand how to build light, do one light, have it so that way you are visible. That quality doesn't matter at the beginning. Your audio does. If your audio sucks, it doesn't matter what you do with your light. Easy thing to do is find yourself a nice window, something with a big light source, right? So the sun, while farther away and it's huge, is a small light source because of the size of it and the point source. And a window creates what we call a large light source, because while that's not the light source, it's reflecting and the light is coming from a large area. That encompasses you better. It softens your background out. Do that. Or if you're outside, keep in mind, if it's noon, no one looks good. I don't care if you're a top model or not. Noon, no one looks good at noon. Don't do that noon light. If you're a client and you're watching this and you're trying to do a shoot with someone, don't insist that you have a noon shoot with your photographer. They're gonna be mad at you, all right? All right, before we get to the last part of talking about if this was worth it or not, and the most important part, the posing. If you know someone that you're like, hey, this is the person that needs to get this, this is the foundational information that they're going to get, send this to them, and then go ahead and name them below. And actually, probably the biggest tool that you could probably find in creating a really great personal brand doesn't come down to understanding your composition or your story or your photographs. Is doing this together with someone else. So finding that tribe, finding that person that you can create with. So here's the hack that really will like blow you up faster than anything else. If you can think of one person that you can call and they're down to create, they're the person that you know will come through, right? And if you're that lucky that you have that person and you can look them in the eye and say, hey, I agree with you on your team, you're my team. And if we're never on the same team, we'll tell each other and we're going to do this thing together where we're going to grow. I'll help you all the time you help me. It's a formal thing. Like you look each other in the face, you and your best bro, all right? Holding hands, bros, and like, hey, we got this together, me and you, right? Better than two. Find 2 people, so you have 3 of you. You have a trilogy. This is the magic number. Three people on a mission where they're supporting each other will create magic. Have them be the person that has your elevator pitch. Whoever you serve, whoever you are transforming, have them introduce you that way. That's the agreement you can have, like, hey, when you're out networking together and you're in a group and everyone's introducing yourself, instead of you saying, hey, my name is Lucky and I help people tell their stories to change the bottom line, have your best buddy Dave tell you, have Jakeem tell that story, be like, oh, let me introduce my friends. Somebody else singing your praise is better social proof than anything you can get online, more than any Lamborghinis that you can show off that you rented, okay? 100%. Get together with a crew, find that community. You only need 3 people. If you can find one person, that's better than you just doing this by yourself, because you doing this by yourself is rough. Don't do this by yourself. If you want to grow your personal brand, if you don't have another person, imagine them, figure out who that person might be, go find them and make this happen, because without that, you will spend way more time. If you spend the next 2 weeks figuring out who the person you can partner with and how to transform yourself into that kind of person, you will spend those 2 weeks and you will be further along the next month than if you spend the next month just working on your stuff. So find those people. All right, posing, part of the composition, part of your equipment. How you pose in your photograph is still informed by your first decision of who your audience is and what your why is, because how you come across always matters. The basic things that you're going to always need in anything to be able to figure out what to do is you've got to breathe. The whole time, no holding your breath. That's the hardest thing. We can all tell. Okay, don't hold your breath. Good posture. Sit up straight. Shoulders back. Even if you got to do it during that period, you feel good, you feel confident. There's no vocation where you feeling bad about yourself is looked at as well. Even when you're doing something edgy, that body conversation, that body language never says just untrustworthy. So, good posture always helps, okay? What to do with your hands? What do you do with your hands when you're not in a photograph? What do you do with your hands when you're not in a video? Use them. It's okay. Like, if they're in the way, it's the digital era. If your hands are in the way, if you're someone that talks a lot with your hands, do it. Be yourself. I know that we all want to pretend to be someone else, but the problem is that when we are catfished, when we see someone on LinkedIn and they are a put together person, and then we see them somewhere else and they're a nut job, we feel catfished, okay? Be yourself. I guarantee you're not that weird. I guarantee you're going to find you're weird. And I guarantee that the person that's taking the photograph, or if you are taking the photograph, you're gonna get a photograph that you're not embarrassed by. You're going to represent yourself well. So do stuff with your hands. Put them in your pocket. Doing this might say you don't like people, so don't do that, okay? If you're uncomfortable in that situation. So do stuff with your hands. Breathe. Good posture. All right? If someone is directing you and they tell you you're doing stuff with your face, believe them. And then also micro movements. Too much. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit, right? 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 Small movements. Keep moving a little bit at a time, right? You know it, right? If this isn't right, it's okay. You're going to feel it. Smile a little bit. Get it out. Pretend to be somebody else. Be confident, right? Be angry. Look down. Have that power pose. Be welcoming, right? Be an actor. Because you're telling your story. You are in control of your story. So when it comes down to your poses, this is not the time for you to be afraid of being judged by somebody that does not get to determine your future. This is your story. You can either tell it or you can have somebody else tell it. And the people that typically tell your story that aren't you aren't telling it for your benefit. So don't be scared to be silly. This is the time to do it. This is the time you have all the permission. Be silly. Tell your story. That's the way of doing that. To end us out here, okay? Make sure that you have a good why. You understand who you are serving before you start making a photograph. You understand who your audience is. Understand your composition, where it's going to live, what the scaling is going to be, what your colors are going to be. And your composition is going to also include things like your posing. Make sure that you are breathing. that you're alive, that you're yourself, and you're standing up. If you're helping somebody, have them do different things, different activities. Do the thing that you do, and it will come across. So showing who you are is really beneficial with that. The other thing is do this in community. Don't do this by yourself. Personal branding is essentially about the reputation, what other people have to say. Involve other people. Don't just go online and wait for someone else to tell your story. Get together with someone that knows you, someone that likes you and trusts you, and have them tell your story with you. Doing this together, you can use each other's resources. And putting together this video, Hannah knew this location well. This is where she's from. This is her area. This is a beautiful thing. Kayleen here is an outdoor enthusiast. She loves to come out and cold dip in the water. She is someone that's an advocate of doing yoga and breath work. So she understood where we were going to be. We came out to the locations where she does this. She's outdoors constantly. I am someone that enjoys the lakes. I love fog, and I love the composition that the fog really can do, because it lets you know where you are without taking away from the context of it. And this is why I looked at the weather and saw it's going to be warm the night before, cold the next day, inversion, all the formula that you need for fog, and we're able to show up here and put that together. Having Julie here to be a second shooter came in not only to be clutch. Everyone feels better when there's a nice mixed group. Not saying that you shouldn't, go shooting with your friends, but having other people around is always comfortable. That's leaning on your community. Also, because our shooting ladies, if they needed help and they just needed something that only like a lady can do, it's nice to have someone that people are comfortable with to be able to do the parts that really might make getting the photo you need challenging. So do these things in community. Also, Julie was able to grab a bunch of photos that she needs for launching her wedding photography business. And she's an incredibly talented photographer. And I got to get the benefit of seeing her perspective, a different way to shoot, a different way to pose people, a different way to put together, a different way to correspond with the client. It's always nice to be able to do these things in community. What I offer them is I got them all out there at a time they probably wouldn't have gotten out there. I put together the idea and the theme of what we're doing, so that way they are all able to get that together. And together we were able to create this thing. And then we also made sure everyone told the story of what they're doing. So everyone now also has a testimonial about what they did. So that way, it's not just here it is, but let's tell you about how it happened so you'll know. So that's how you get your personal brand going. Okay, you know who you're talking to. You make sure that you put your composition together. You don't make your equipment complicated. You keep that simple, and you go out there and you create with your friends, and you create a bunch. And you know where your stuff is going to go. Once you do have all that set together, then you make sure that stuff goes out. If you're doing a blog, make sure you go ahead and put everything in a planner. I am putting together a Notion template that I may link that below here, just so you understand how you put your stuff out after you create it. So that way you're not putting one picture out and be like, that was a whole photo shoot, one thing, and it doesn't do you any good. You want to have content that lives on. So if you do a photo shoot, you want to have content for a month, at least, if not for 3 months. The girl on top of a mountain right there. Dig it. Yeah, how are we gonna get back is a whole nother question.
What do you mean?
But this is